if I can make this work. So, just to give you a brief introduction about who I am, I've been involved in mobile apps and mobile games since 1999, going back to the days of Brew and J2 in the apps when you had to convince folks like AT&T and Verizon to launch them on DeX. We started Gummicube about 12 years ago. We're one of the oldest ASO companies in North America, probably one of the oldest in the world. Most tools are out there. And you know, it's an interesting space. It's been interesting to watch it evolve over the years. What I really want to talk about today is really all the things about ASO optimization that people might not know about and what they might assume is true, but maybe isn't really true, where you need to kind of just be aware of where your data comes from. So first, is ASO worth it? A lot of people want to know, right? How much of a difference does this make? Well, 60 to 70% of organic installs actually come from search from the App Store and Google Play Store. It's a huge number. Search is way more important than chart ranking for most apps today, and this is how people really discover things. We really want to use ASO for a number of reasons, right? We want to increase your organic downloads from the store, but we also want to increase your conversion rates across all channels. A lot of people, I think when they talk about ASO, talk about it only in terms of search or market intelligence, or only in terms of conversion optimization, depending on who you talk to. The reality is these things work together to get you visibility in the store and make all of your traffic more efficient. You have to do both, and they really do communicate with each other in a lot of ways. The other thing that I think is really important just to get out of the way up front is that this is not SEO for apps. It's an analogy that exists online. It's actually a terrible analogy. This is more like e-commerce optimization. App Store and Play Store have way more in common with the way Amazon.com works than the way that Google Web Search works. And when you think about how people search semantically in the App Store and Play Store, what is it? Products, features, services, kind of phrase-based queries that people are looking for. It's not the information-based queries that we typically see online. So how do we make our partners more successful with ASO? So number one, it's extremely important to use mobile data to get mobile insights. There are still people out there. There are still tools out there that pull in web data for ASO to get search volume information. This is a really bad thing. There's only about 20% overlap between web and mobile search trends. Not the same. Really important to ask where you're getting your data from. The other thing is that when you look at kind of data around impressions and metrics per keywords, well, there are a lot of tools that provide estimates about this. But the reality is, I think it's more important to look at your footprint to understand where your visibility comes from. Because Apple and Google actually don't provide third parties data about how many downloads come from keywords, or specifically how many impressions come from keywords. Those are usually estimates. They're not always correct. And when we do App Store optimization for our clients, where we start is understanding what we can really get from Apple and Google, and then we work backwards from there to come up with a more authentic approach. One other point, a lot of people talk about Apple Search Ads popularity scores. We look at those scores, but we don't really think they're a true metric of search volume in the store. They're a metric of demand in the paid ad unit, which Apple uses to guide people to where there's inventory so they can bid on keywords. It's not the same as organic search volume per keyword, and it's not the exclusive metric that should be used for ASO. Finally, there are a lot of tools out there. There are a lot of folks talking about how they attribute downloads to keywords. The problem really starts if you don't understand everywhere an app ranks, if you don't understand the entire app's footprint in the store, have a good understanding of what search volume looks like for all those keywords, it kind of becomes an estimate on top of an estimate. If you're tracking 40 or 50 keywords for your app, and 100% of your search downloads are being attributed to those keywords based on how you rank and interpretation of volume, probably about 40 or 50 of your 50% of your installs are being misattributed because of all the places that Apple and Google can merchandise you in the store, even if you're not directly targeting keywords. That's important to keep in mind. Those kind of estimates, not always the best to judge which keyword is most important for you. I received an interesting note on LinkedIn the other day. It was from this interesting person who wanted to sell me, what did he say? ASO machine brushes. I had no idea what that was, but apparently what it meant was he would take a board of about 500 phones somewhere offshore, and he would automatically download apps using keywords to try to boost their ranking. I just want to point out there are a lot of people who will Google ASO and they will find people who do this. This will get you removed from the App Store and Play Store. It is against their terms and conditions. It's not something you should do if you value your developer account. Never do this. So, in terms of how we execute, right, we always want to practice iteration and seasonality, right? When you iterate, you get Apple and Google in their learning mode. When you update, you have them merchandising in the store and experiment where you convert well across their various audiences. That's really important, and it's how to think about ASO. It's not about what keyword, it's about what audience. It's about what is my feature and how is that audience searching, because that's how Apple and Google think about ASO. You also have to think about seasonality, right? If I'm Macy's and I'm trying to market a product at my retail store, I'm not going to put winter coats in my screenshots during summertime. And if you don't update your content for 6 months, Apple and Google kind of think you're selling winter coats during the summertime. So it's important to A/B test and update. Paid and organic sometimes do have coefficients. Now, I know there are a lot of media agencies out there, and a lot of times media agencies will tell you the solution for ASO is to spend more money. A lot of search ads people will tell you the solution for ASO is to spend more money on keywords. That's a complete fallacy. It's not true. ASO can work really, really well on its own. Certain paid channels can help if you know how to work them. For example, search ads isn't a bad channel to incrementally feed Apple more data about where you convert well in the store. That can incrementally help your organic rankings. But you can't get search ads to work if your ASO doesn't work. Apple's going to be crawling your description to understand your relevancy. They're going to be looking at your organic conversion rates, which open up share of voice in the store. And so the best thing to do if you want search ads to work is really succeed from a conversion optimization standpoint and an ASO standpoint to build relevancy for your app. On the metadata side, right, we want to make sure we're using real mobile data. Now, we have some tools for this, but we always think of it like this. What are your features? What is user intent when they're searching? How can we figure out that intent? And then how can we get to a place where we target the most keywords for that audience? On the creative side, right, A/B testing is really critical. When people want to know why they rank better for a keyword or worse for a keyword, it's because of your conversion rate for that keyword. Not your conversion rate for your overall store listing. That's why, if you want to talk about search ads, Apple publishes your percentage conversion rate per keyword because it's very useful information. So we want to leverage A/B testing. When we leverage A/B testing, we want to do it uniquely per store because Apple and Google have very different interfaces. Apple's more like a buy it now experience. 70 or 80% of people on the App Store download directly from the search result. They never see your store listing. A lot of people don't know that. Your paid traffic, of course, sees your store listing. And that's why when you're A/B testing, you also have to think about traffic sources. Not all traffic is equal. When you A/B test against Facebook traffic using an external testing tool, you're not A/B testing for conversion in the store, you're A/B testing for conversion with your traffic that is outside the store. Facebook user behavior will not be the same as discovery user behavior in the store where people are scrolling the search result like Instagram. Very important to keep that in mind as you think about A/B testing. Google Play obviously has great Google experiments. A lot of people used to use this to also understand what might convert on Apple until product page optimization came along. But while this is a great tool, it does have its limitations in terms of how you can apply it to Apple. Primarily because with Apple, you also have to figure out how to make your first 3 screenshots convert as well as your product page, because that's where most people hit the download button who are organic. On Apple, they do have some interesting new features around product page optimization, custom store listings, which is nice. The challenge is, it's a Rev 1 Apple product, there's still bugs, there's still things they're working out. For example, if you do a release every week for your app to do rapid updating like some companies do, it will stop your tests. So there are things that they're still working out in terms of the workflow for PPO and CPP. We have found it really useful for our clients. In terms of limitations, you can run one test at a time. Icons are tied to binaries. You want to A/B test, you have to load that into your binary to test. When you look at kind of the testing capabilities, there's almost no metadata testing. It's really just for screenshots. And what we've seen is when we A/B test metadata, you can actually get higher conversion rates depending on what metadata that is and where it appears in the store. And there are a lot of tools for external A/B testing. I'm not going to name them all. We have one. A lot of people who are running a lot of paid marketing want to drive traffic through these tools to understand how to boost their conversion rate and get better yield on their traffic. The problem is when they deploy something in the store, they realize that the conversion rate doesn't look like they thought it would after they ran the test. And That's because organic users, as I said before, don't behave like users on paid traffic, right? You might get a bump on Facebook traffic, but that doesn't mean you will get a bump on your organic traffic, and it's important to understand how to test and compare both. So, just again, may not reflect organic user behavior. Some external testing platforms, again, don't really use mobile data. They feed it in from other sources. And we still advise full deployments for validation of what you're doing. In terms of best practices, so when you're thinking about A/B testing, it's obvious you need a control. But what a lot of people don't realize is that you shouldn't A/B test your screenshots the same week you update your metadata when Apple and Google are trying to crawl you. Because you're not going to understand why your keywords increased or decreased in rank. Was it because you did a better metadata optimization? Or was it because you're converting better as a result of your screenshots? So you want to pull those things apart. You want to give Apple and Google their learning period when you do updates. And then you want to create space throughout your process so you can run A/B testing. So, in summary, and I'm a little early, so we'll have plenty of time for QA if there is any. ASO is not SEO for apps. I feel like any website that writes that on their website should not be in the business of ASO. It's a terrible analogy. If I was hiring for App Store optimization, I'd hire someone who actually built a marketing product for Amazon.com and understands how that algorithm works, not one of SEO person. That's how close it is to the way Amazon works. Apple and Google do not provide specific search metrics. Honestly, if you want to prove this to yourself, don't take my word for it. Whatever tools you use, look at the Google Play Store, where they give you a brief snippet of the keywords that you rank for and certain downloads that come from your top keywords, and see if it matches what your tool tells you. And if it doesn't match what your tool tells you, you should probably find a new tool. Organic growth is very fundamental to paid success. Paid can help organic, but paid does not function as the primary driver for organic. It's not a media buying exercise. When you look at the channels that are going to help you most when it comes to ASO, it's the store channels, like search ads and Google ads, because Apple and Google value the data and the clicks that come from those channels. In the end, it's about a holistic approach. It's about understanding how different user behaviors exist within every channel. And it's about understanding that paid and organic can work together, but paid doesn't drive organic. Also, A/B test all the time. Every time I talk to a partner, they always talk about A/B testing their store listing. That's what people know how to do. It's what Google established, Google experiments. The problem, again, is Apple and Google are measuring your conversion rate per keyword. So if you don't convert well in search because people can't see what is in your first 3 screenshots, it's not going to particularly matter in terms of improving your rankings in the store. You've got to be able to pay attention to both of those things. So anyway, appreciate your time today. Thank you. This is, we're Gummicube. We have a little booth upstairs. We can hang out and chat if we want to. Happy to take any questions that you guys have as well. All right. Thanks, guys.